Right, this is Frank West from the WA Historical Cycle Club. It's Friday, the 16th of July 2021. I'm speaking to Bruce Hunt. The reason we're speaking to Bruce Hunt for a number of reasons is he's a former Beverley to Perth winner, set fastest time for 2 years. He was a professional cyclist for the Peugeot Australia team, and he has a few other wins and high places to his name. So hopefully looking forward to a really interesting interview. So Bruce, if you could just introduce yourself and just so that people can hear your voice.
Yep, okay, yep. Obviously my name's Bruce Hunt. I'm, what am I now? I'm 77 now, so I'm getting on a bit, but I still ride the bike every day, and not very fast, but I still ride the bike. I haven't got round to putting a calendar on the handlebars yet and turning the pages, so I haven't got that bad. But as ever, so I'm here with Frank, and we're just going to talk a bit about my history, I guess, of bike racing from the beginning.
Now, it's quite obvious from your accent that you're not Australian born. You were born in the UK?
I was, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
And where in the UK were you born?
I was born in, it's East London now, but it was Essex when I was a child, but it became Greater London. But I was born in Essex.
Okay.
In 1944. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, just to get some background now, East London. When did you get your first bike?
When I was about 5, I got my first two-wheeler and learnt to ride it round and round the block. Didn't fall off, I don't think. And it was what they called a fairy cycle because it had tiny little wheels. I think they were 12-inch wheels. But I'd go off on massive adventures. I remember the first time I went for a long ride, it was nearly 10 miles to a place called High Beach near Epping. And I would have been about 5 or 6. And
By yourself?
Yeah, by myself. And my parents were beside themselves. I didn't realise. I thought, this is all right. But as ever, I got there and back. But that was the beginning of my intro into exploring on a bike, basically. And from there on, I progressed on bikes until eventually I used a bike to ride to work, which was 9 miles each way, I guess, to work. And I used to buy the English Cycling magazine because it was a treasure trove of information about racing. And in the classified ads, there was an advertisement for a cycling club in the local area I lived in. A club named Leo Road Club. Graham Aubrey rode for Leo Road Club in later years, but as ever. And I was club champion of Leo Road Club before Graham Aubrey, so I don't know whether my name was still on the trophy, but as ever. Anyhow, this I responded to this ad that was in the cycling magazine, and I eventually joined the club, and I progressed from there. And the first year in that cycling club, I won the junior BAR.
And how old were you then?
15.
15. Uh-huh. When did you start work?
I started work in 1959.
Okay.
I started work as a messenger boy at the Associated Press.
Right.
In Fleet
okay.
Street.
Yep. Okay. Yep. And you were riding to work, and that was 9 miles.
Yeah, about 9 miles each way,
round trip,
I guess.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
okay.
80 miles. Yeah.
Okay, so you're cycling to and from work, and you're starting to race.
Yeah.
Now, having lived in the UK, I know that there's not many daylight hours. Tell us about the training that you did. Was it with the club? Was it indoor, outdoor, light, dark?
Yeah, it was all outdoor, and it was in the dark. And I remember the bike lights at the time that you could get. They were like glowworms. It cost 2 and 6pence for a battery for the front lamp, and it'd last about an hour. And you'd have this glowworm at the front and the glowworm at the back, and there we were on main roads doing bit and bit down the road. Yeah. Of course it was dark. In fact, when I was working for AP, the Associated Press, I used to ride to work in the dark and come home in the dark and in later years, spend most of my day in a darkroom doing processing, so I didn't see daylight until the weekends. But that was my early life in cycling anyhow. the first racing bike I got, I bought from a bike shop in Leytonstone called Rivets. And Rivets' manager there was a guy named Terry Lack, who's actually here in Australia.
Oh, Steve Lack's.
Yeah, Terry Lack, Steve Lack's father. He was the manager at the shop there, and I ordered a frame through him, and I think it cost me about £12, 12 shillings, 12 guineas. I think it cost me for a handmade frame, and then I cobbled together all the rest of the equipment as you do, bolt, beg, and borrow, and I put this bike together, and that was my racing bike for the next couple of years, and let's see what. I don't think I won my first road race on that. I rode mainly time trials. But somewhere along the line, I acquired a Cinelli frame, and that became my first road racing bike. And I actually won my first road race in 1961, a third category in junior road race in Essex. I think it was 40-mile road race. And I won it in a lone breakaway, because that's the only way I could win a race. I couldn't sprint to save my life. But anyhow, from then on, I rode every weekend, and evening 10s. Ride evening 10-mile time trials as well. So, and there was quite a big contingent of riders that rode these evening races, and also in time trials of a weekend. There were fields of 120 riders. That's the maximum you could have, but 120 riders every weekend. And most of the races were handicap. So although the fastest time won, of course, all the riders were handicapped, and I think I picked up first handicap on a few races, but as I got better, of course, my handicap wasn't as good.
Were those time trial courses, because England's got an interesting history when it comes to the time trials, and then the Stallard Breakaway Group, the British League of Racing Cyclists, and stuff like that. But there were lots of mass start road races going on at the same time. It's not like you felt forced or still obliged to.
There was plenty of road races going on. Fields were limited to 40 riders in a road race. That was the limit, and getting into a road race was quite difficult, because as a lone rider riding for Leo, which was recognised as a time trial club, it was difficult to get your nomination accepted into road races. So I think it was about 1964 that I moved from the Leo Club to the Hainault Road Club, because they were more a road race orientated club, and because there was teams of 3, you'd get in road races because of the events that the group of us have won and got placed in, we naturally got in quite easily. So that was my introduction to road racing, really.
Were those races, were they like again here in WA, there was a big distinction between pros and amateurs and stuff like that. Were you riding for prize money or just the glory? Did you have any goals about representing Britain or anything like that? Or?
Oh, of course, but you're doing a full-time job, and I knew the training you needed to do, but I didn't have the time to do it. No, I raced purely as an amateur, just for the enjoyment of racing. Not that the pain was that enjoyable, but you know what I mean. And I lost my train of thought now.
Teams, pros, amateurs?
Yeah, it was on pros and amateurs. Yeah, so I was riding amateur, but it was categorised. So I progressed from third category to second category, and eventually into first cat. So I was riding with the main riders of, riders like Bob Abbey. I rode against him in England.
Oh right, yeah. Another local guy.
Yeah. Doug Daly, who won the national title. Several riders. Dave Rollinson, he was national champion. So I was riding with all these riders.
So you had those inspirations.
Yeah. So I was there, but not there. I'd ride these races, and it was just a thrill to actually finish with them, even though I didn't win, but I was there.
Yeah. So how many hours then, and how many miles were you putting in at that stage, just roughly?
I'd say, I'd go out twice a week on a 40-mile loop. usually with a group, twice a week, and with my riding to work and back, right? So that's 80 plus, what have we got? Call it 20 miles a day, say, added on to that, so it's 100, so 180, probably, and the weekend riding, so probably 250, 260 miles a week back then, you know.
With your training techniques, was it all about just sitting in the saddle and pedaling as fast as you could sort of thing, or were you doing any sort of like interval training, or what were the specifics of your training?
It was basically mini road races, because you'd all meet, a gang would meet, and you'd do bit and bit, you know. So that you'd often have a group of 30 riders, all banging through, doing as hard a turn as they can. And you'd end up where we had a sprint, usually in Abridge, a place called Abridge. There was a 30-mile-an-hour sign, so sprint for the 30. That was the end of it, you know. And you start off with about 30, and you'd end up with about a dozen left at the finish. The guys getting spat out the back. So,
and was that mainly flat? Did you ever venture out to find some hills or valleys and things like that?
No, it was quite hilly.
Snow packs, ice packs.
Oh, now, having talked about training, there was one road race I rode in the Luton 2-day road race. Bob Addy was in it actually, and there was snow on the Cotswolds. Was it Cotswolds? Yeah, there was snow on the Cotswolds, and you got into a tyre track, the snow, and you had to stand it. And if somebody attacked down the other side, you couldn't go across because you couldn't get across the lump of snow in the middle of the road. But that was. I mean, nowadays they call the race off if you wouldn't ride it. But back then, But I think sanity is, you know, hardiness has given way to sanity now. I think, you know, so wouldn't do those sort of things now.
The Tour de France is on right now, and obviously there's a lot of history related to the Tour de France and how difficult it was and how challenging the organisers made for it. What sort of clothing were you wearing then? Were they like? Now we have fancy lycras with padding and stuff like that. What sort of kit did you go out riding with?
Okay, long pants were what they called plus twos, and usually long woolen socks, usually a harlequin pattern, because that was vogue to have a harlequin pattern socks, the plus twos, and on the tops you'd have layers of clothing. You know, various low, and sometimes an anorak, you know, in the cold weather. But it was nothing like what you go training in nowadays. You know, it really was quite sort of oldie worldy. It hadn't changed much from the 1940s, 1930s to clothing, apart from not being +4 was over a bit more streamlined than that.
And just one last question on that period when you were in the UK. Your bike, presumably you're running gears. The first the first bike I had was 4-speed. 4-speed atom cluster, or what we call blocks atom block, 4-speed. Then I progressed to a 5-speed. I think it was Regina 5-speed on a single chain wheel. 16, 17, 18, 19.
Something like that. No. I think it was 14 to 18 or 19. You're right. Somewhere around there. And just a single chain wheel. And then when I got more into road racing, it was a double chain ring, but it was close ratio chain ring. It was sort of 52-49, not much difference. But the block, of course, was more spaced out.
Yep. Okay, so now we're still talking about the 1960s now, aren't we? Early 1960s. Okay, so now I'm aware that you left for Australia at some stage. When did you depart for Australia?
1969.
Okay, so you were, quick bit of maths there.
25.
25. Okay, so presumably you're still racing.
No, if we can backtrack a bit. 1966 was my best year for road racing in England, but I used to play soccer as well, and I did my knee. I did the cartilage in my knee, and I had to have surgery. So that was my racing finish for then. But in them days, of course, they didn't just take the little tear off the cartilage that was causing the trouble. They took the cartilage out. Mm. So, you know, so it was a major thing. So I never got back to racing after that. Seriously, I rode a few time trials, but nothing, because the knee just hurt the whole time because of the cold. Mm-hmm. So all right on a summer's day, but mostly in the winter it was quite painful. And anyhow, so I never raced seriously after 1966.
Right, okay. Yep. Okay, so now I'm aware that by now you're a qualified photographer, or you're doing photography full time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you decided to head over to Australia. So what was the basis for that decision?
Now, I was working at a photographic company in Paddington in West London, and I got offered this other job. This was 1967. This would be. And I got offered this other job, and I thought, yeah, I'll take that. So I applied for it and went to the interview. Everything seemed kosher. All right. So I handed in my notice at the job I was at. And the job that I was going to, it fell through. So I basically sacked myself and I hadn't got a job to go to. And it was a bad time because unemployment was rife at that time. So I went to the labour exchange.
Is that because the unions were really active then, or was it just a period of time?
No, I think it was just a period of time. Yeah. The unions did have a role in it, but it wasn't a major issue with me. Okay. But I went to the labour exchange, or the same as Centrelink here, and they asked me what I did for a living, and I told them, and I was interviewed by this resplendent man with a turban on. And he said, oh, goodness gracious me, we've got no jobs like that for you. And I said, well, is there anything? He said, oh, no, there's nothing here. He said, have you ever thought of emigrating? And there's an Indian guy saying to me, have you ever thought of emigrating? And I thought, that's a good idea.
It's a job swap.
So anyhow, we thought about it, and my girlfriend at the time, I put it to her, I said, what do you reckon? Shall we give it a go? And we chewed it over for about a year, and we said, yeah, let's do it. So we thought, well, we're not going as £10 ponds, so we bought this car, a Renault 4, cost me 195 quid.
Big investment.
And I said to all my mates, we're going to drive to Australia. And we took off down the road, and they were still laughing in their beer as we took off, you know. And anyhow, we actually drove overland through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, down to Colombo, into Malaysia, up to Thailand, down to Singapore, and eventually we put the car on a boat, on a freighter, from Singapore to Port Hedland. So we arrived in Australia in Port Hedland. You know, if all immigrants arrive in Port Hedland, don't they? Anyway,
Yeah.
So there we ended there. So we got here in 1970, March. It was Labor Day, 1970. We knew it was Labor Day because the docks weren't working, so we were stuck on the boat.
This is you've hinted at this. I just want to go back to the actual trip now, just for listeners who might be listening to this in 2090 or whenever.
Yeah,
we're talking pre-internet days now.
Yeah.
So, did you do much research into what you were going to encounter or the route that you were going to take? Did Turkey and its architecture come as a complete surprise, or did you have expectations, or did you just follow the sign that went to the next country and?
Partly both of those, because what had happened is the London-Sydney motor rally had taken place in '66, so we knew that there was a window of opportunity that was rapidly closing, that we could do this, and we researched that, so we had a rough idea of what we was going to encounter on the way, but it can't really prepare you for what eventuates. and of course, when you go to some of these out of the way places, you are really treated as though you've just landed from Mars. You know, it wasn't a time of great international travel on that scale. People would go to Spain or go to France, but they weren't travelling further afield to these third world countries.
Now, excuse my ignorance, but some of those countries, did they have a lot of motor cars, or was even the motor car a bit of a surprise? Or because I'm thinking now Pakistan and some of the more remote regions, they wouldn't see many cars.
No, they didn't. No. In Greece, it was bedlam on the road. There was cars that had more dents than bodywork, racing around. Turkey was a bit the same, and in the areas outside the cities, no, there wasn't many cars, but there was lots of trucks of varying degrees of roadworthiness.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to be cautious of them,
Yeah.
because in fact, in one place in Afghanistan, we had stopped at a petrol stop. I wouldn't say it was a petrol station. It was a Bowser stuck in a sand dune. I'm sure the spear went straight through the sand dune into the petrol, because the petrol smelt like bitumen. Anyway, while we were parked there, one of these Afghan trucks came in behind us with painting all over it, artworks all over it. Came in behind us, and the guy riding shotgun jumped out with a chock in his hand and started putting the chock under the front wheels to slow the truck down.
Oh no!
So he ran over the chock, and then he ran in front of it again and put it under the chock.
Yeah.
So the brakes obviously weren't working, and he was just using the gearbox to slow down.
Yeah.
And the amount of times we saw trucks that had fallen over and what have you. So, it was pretty hair raising on the road, really. But as far as cars go, no, there wasn't many cars.
Yeah. So you presumably you had a pretty decent run then, because it's not like you're going to go to the corner shop and pick up some Renault 4 parts.
Well, we did shock absorbers, and we had to buy some new shock absorbers. I'd say new shock absorbers in Karachi, and we couldn't get Renault parts, of course, so we made do with what this guy came back with. He said, "I've got some shock absorbers that should fit." Well, they fitted, but they were useless. So we had to put springs from a Vespa motorcycle over the shock absorbers to help with the shock absorbing, because these shock absorbers were absolutely useless. We might as well have taken the shock absorbers out altogether. But it was ever,
And did you manage to sell the car when you arrived in Australia? Or
no, I fixed it up and I drove it for another 2 or 3 years, I think. Yeah. And people used to laugh at it when like guys out at the races. They used to laugh at us and say, "That car wouldn't use much petrol, would it?" I said, "Why'd you say that?" He said, "Well, it's pointing downhill." because the suspension on the back was raised right up for the load we had at the time, and I never changed it. No, I had it for about 2 or 3 years, and I sold it for $50 in the finish. The guy that bought it off us, he was aware that the wiring loom had got burnt.
Mm-hmm.
And he phoned us a couple of days later and said, "So I fixed it up, the car's running perfectly." So there you go.
Yeah, fantastic.
Anyhow,
Okay, so get back to the cycling a little bit.
Yeah.
So now you've arrived, you're in your late 20s, and presumably you're working as a photographer?
No.
Oh, okay. Not that matters, but getting back to the cycling sort of thing. So when did you take up cycling again? Because
I took up cycling
because I know now. So you arrived in 1970, and I know by 1974 you're riding as a professional. So you've obviously been putting a few miles in there.
Yeah. What happened there is there was a guy I used to race and train with in England, Peter Robinson. You heard of Peter Robinson?
Yeah, I know Peter. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to race and train with him. He left for Australia in 1966, and anyhow, when I got here, I looked him up. And he said, "Look, I've got a bike frame here." So he had a bike frame and some bits and pieces, and we cobbled together a bike. And I started riding club events with the Southern Districts, which he was in the Southern Districts.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I think it's gone now. The Southern Districts.
What suburbs is that encapsulate?
It was basically Thornley, Maddington, Gosnells, Armidale, that sort of area. Okay.
Yeah.
So
were you living down there? Was that a requirement
No.
to live in those areas, or
No, it wasn't a requirement. But it was a club that I first joined. That's all. I could have joined anything. I could have joined the Floret or the Midland.
Mm-hmm.
No, I couldn't have joined the Midland. That was a professional club.
Okay, so you were riding as an amateur.
Yeah. So anyhow, I put the bike together, and
Do you remember what brand the bike was?
oh,
I know Peter had a Milton Jones at one stage.
oh, crikey! It was an English frame, Rowan something. I can't recall. Rowan was on the frame, but that was just part of the name. I'm pretty sure, but I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, it had a very long top tube and very slack angles. So I had the seat right forward. It looked ridiculous, to get a position on it. Yeah. But I raced it in club events and I did okay. Nothing special. I was riding off about the middle marks of handicap races and getting a spat. But,
So there must have been a big turnaround where you started taking it seriously, or were you just so naturally physically gifted that all of a sudden you're offered a pro ride with Peugeot? How did that come about?
I found that I didn't have a real problem with the knee. I didn't have a real problem with the knee. Yep. I couldn't stand on the pedals and sprint as such, and I never did. All my racing career, I just sat and grounded out because if I stood and got the knee, my thigh over the knee, it'd grab. So I couldn't. So anyhow, I found I could race without any real problem. And anyhow, I got a job. I saw this ad in the paper for a photocopy technician. I thought, well, a photocopy technician must be something to do with photography. So I applied for it. I applied for this job. And when I got there, I thought, I don't know anything about the photocopy machines. But the guy that was the manager there was what was his name now? The guy who was the manager there was also in the Southern District Cycling Club. And he said, I met you last weekend, didn't I? I said, yes. He said, when can you start? And I said, oh, crap. I said, well, I can start straight away, but I'd need some workshop manuals because I'm not used to these machines. So he lent them to me, so I studied them all as best I could. And I thought, oh, I've made a start here. What was his name? Ernie Roberts. Ernie Roberts was his name. Ernie Roberts. Yeah. So he gave me a start, and I worked there for the best part of a year. But Ernie got sick. He got, what did he get? He got cancer. What was it? What's the spinal one? What do you call it? Where they do a transplant of, what do they call it?
That's the blood...
leukemia, isn't it? Leukemia, yeah. Anyhow, he died. And the guy that took over from him, he tweaked it straight away. I didn't know what I was doing. So he sacked me. Oh, crikey, you know. I didn't like the job anyhow, but it was a job. And I got by. I didn't destroy anything. Anyhow, one of the guys I was working with there, young lad, his dad was a truck driver for Cottage, the soft drink company. And he said, oh, look, my dad will get you a job at truck driving. I said, but I can't drive a truck. Yeah, my dad will teach you. So I said, okay. So I met his dad, and he turned up with a Cottage truck full of jingling bottles on the back. I said, well, hop in. So I hopped in. He drove round the back of East Perth and said, get in, and I'll take and drive. So I drove it round and round where the trotting track is. And it's a steep hill there. It's hill starts and all that sort of thing. And he said, yeah, you're doing all right. He said, I'll take you in. And he used to be a driving instructor, so he knew everyone at the police station. So we get to the police station and I had to do a written test. And anyhow, I did this written test, and the police officer or the guy who was checking, he said, you're not crash hot at this, are you? And George said, oh yeah, but he drove in England, it's slightly different there. He said, well, George, you know better than me. Okay, no worries, so sign me off on the written test. George says, get back in the truck, I'll take you over to Vic Park. Take you to Vic Park and do your driving test, your actual practical test over there. And so go over there, and I thought, this isn't going to work.
And you've had 15 minutes driving.
Yeah. So went over there, and he goes into the police station with a carton of dry ginger cans on his shoulder that he nicked off the back of the truck. Walks into the police station, put it on the counter, and he said to the guy there, he said to the police officer there, can you take my mate for a driving test? He's driven in England. He's only just over from England, and the police officer said, look, I can't fit him in. I'm just absolutely flat out. And George said, well, he needs to start the job, and you know me. And he said, oh, yeah, all right. Look, I haven't got time to say it. Okay, just sign him off. He's got... So I've never even drove. I was 15 and I had a driving licence for a truck. I'm not sure whether to record that, but that was at the police station at Vic Park. So anyhow, so I started at the cottage, worked as an offsider, and then eventually I had a truck, and off I went. And I had no problems really, you know, it's the same as driving a car, but a bit bigger. Anyhow, it was heavy, hard work, very manual work, you know, so I got very fit. But in the winter, there wasn't an awful lot of work. So I asked, I said, any chance of me just working 2 days a week, you know, on the areas around Perth, the Perth metropolitan? And they said, yeah, that'd suit us, because, you know, there's not much, we're making work for you when we haven't got work. So yeah, okay. So I worked through, I thought, this is my chance, I can be an athlete. Mm-hmm. So from 1971, I really got stuck into it, And I think it was the 71 state road title, the amateur road title. I ran third to Steele Bishop in the long distance, the 100-mile road title. Dave Brown was second, I think. And anyhow, in the 100-kilometre road race, I finished third again to Steele Bishop. Yeah. I can't remember who ran. It might have been Greg Hastings that finished second. And then in the time trial, I finished third again. But Steele Bishop won it. Bob Baer was second. Bob Baer from South Australia. He was in the Olympic team with Hank Vogels. He was second, and I was third. Anyhow, came to the end of the year, and they selected a team to go to the Australian titles. And they picked a team of 6, and I wasn't in it. They didn't select me. And I thought, crikey, what the hell? And I complained bitterly, and it didn't make any difference. They'd already decided, the 6 riders that were going, so I wasn't in. And anyhow, in the summer of what would be 72, the early summer of 72, they had the Olympic selection trials, West Australian Olympic trials, to go to the National Olympic. And I won both trials. I won them by daylight, you know. So they had no choice.
Couldn't ignore that.
They couldn't ignore it. So they picked me, and I rode. And in the Australian road title.
So were you an Australian citizen by now, or were you covered by residency? Or?
I had to take out Australian citizenship to get a ride in the national titles. Yeah, so I did. I would have done anyhow, but anyhow, with the national road title, it was in Queensland. I was still there at, I think I was still there at 80 miles. I think it was I'm not sure it was 120 miles or 100 miles. I was still there. And I came off, I fell off at the feeding station. Someone ran into me, ran out with something. I crashed into them. John Trevorrow went over the top of me. And anyhow, got back up and chased. Trevorrow was on the wheel. And he said, come on, it's now or never. And he came past me, and I couldn't get his wheel. He just came past me. I couldn't get on. He managed to get back to the bunch. I didn't make it. So that was the end of me, so I pulled out. So that was the end of my Olympic dreams, and that was it. When I came back to Perth, I thought, well, there's no point in me going on riding amateur, so I turned pro.
Right, yeah. How were you feeling really devastated and down about it, or
yeah, I was disappointed because
jump on the bike again and.
I was okay. I was upbeat about it, but I was disappointed that I had a chance. That was a one window chance of doing something special, and it didn't happen. So I thought, oh well, I'll turn pro. I'm not going to ride with the amateurs back in Perth because it was a waste of time, really. I think Rick Scarrott. I don't know. Remember Rick Scarrott? No, he won the state title 10 times. The state road title, I think, 10 times. He was a bloody good rider. But he had really not a lot of opposition.
So he was professional?
No, he rode amateur. But he did eventually turn pro, but he didn't do anything as a pro. Okay. You know, there was a golf. There was a serious golf. Anyhow, so I turned pro, and Eddie Barham Actually, Eddie Barron actually bought me out the amateurs because I had to pay some sort of bond. I don't know how it worked, and so I joined the Midland Club, and he sponsored me. I rode for Sagino because he was importing Sagino equipment. Yeah. So I got a Sagino, and so did Kevin Spencer. We both rode for Sagino.
Oh, yeah, I know Kevin.
Yeah. So we both rode for Sagino for a year, and in the road title in the professional West Australian professional road title that year in 73, yeah, in 73. Kevin Spencer won it, and he also won the Australian road title.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, and Macca was second, Laurie Norris was third, and I was fourth in my first real year as professional.
Yep. Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was Sagino as a professional.
Yeah.
So you don't need to ask this question, but what sort of money was there to be made?
Oh,
Back in the 50s, I know that people would, if when they went pro and they wanted to buy a house and they really put their mind to it, it would make a significant contribution.
Yeah.
What sort of money were there for?
It
for
was
races, salary?
It was basically your equipment, your noms, and it was assumed that you was going to run places in the races, which you won money there. Because so that was it. So you didn't have to pay. There was no expenses, but it was only what you won in the races. There was no there was no wage as such.
Yep. Now I know in track racing that they talk about the chop and whatever else. I mean, did you sort of team up with other riders and talk about sharing prize money and stuff like that, or to get someone into?
Well, no, because we were team riders, so we worked for each other. There was chops going on, and we knew chop. But my first experience with the chop was in the Collie Donnybrook in '73, and I didn't know there was a chop going on. And anyhow, I was riding on block, and we caught second block in about 10 miles. And they had about 7 or 8 minutes start. And I thought, this is odd. Anyway, when they started all working together, So I thought, oh, okay. And anyhow, I thought they were just saving themselves. Naive. How naive was I? And got to Mumble Up coming back, and I thought, this is my chance. We've hit the front. So I broke away up Mumble Up Hill. And I must have got about 2 minutes on the bunch, And coming down towards Collie with about 3 or 4 miles to go, this massive mob caught me. And anyhow, they caught me, and I just mingled with them. And at the finish, they started dividing out money. And I thought, hang about, don't I get anything? No, you weren't in the chop. I said, well, I didn't know there was a chop. So I got paid nothing, And they were distributing the money, and it must have been a fair sort of a prize money to split it up between, I think, about 8 riders, I think.
Oh, yep.
So
how did you feel? Were you embarrassed about being that naive about it? Did you feel resentful that was going on and it didn't come down to individual ability, talent, or whatever? Or how would someone like you have felt about that?
I felt it strange. It didn't worry me as such, but I thought it odd. Why would you go out there and punish yourself to split the money with someone else? That's what seemed particularly odd. That you've got teams or sponsored riders from different areas all riding together as a team when they weren't really a team. It seemed odd, but I got the hang of it. I know, but as it went on, it never happened that I was in a chop as such. I know guys like Hank Vogels and that were operating chops with other riders. And I remember one time when Hank Vogels got in a fight with someone over at, who was it? What was his name? He got in a dispute over the chop with a rider from the eastern states. I can't remember his name now. He was a boxer, this guy. He was a professional boxer as well. Mm-hmm. And anyhow, poor old Hank, he got a smack around the ear, you know, because he was demanding money off of this guy. I can't remember. If only I can't remember the lad's name now. But as ever, Hank Vogel's complained, and the police carted him off, and he made official
Got
complaint.
the result.
Yeah, and anyhow, it all came to nothing in the finish. But that was another intro to chops.
Yeah. Did you feel it was more the senior riders that were organising these sort of like things? Was there sort of like a respect that they sort of automatically had,
the chops went
anybody and everybody?
No, the chops went right down the line to front markers. You know, front markers were working with other front markers to try and keep the scratches off, which is fair call, I suppose, because you can't expect one bloke to smash his guts out the front on his own, can you? You know, so I guess it was it. Well, handicaps actually encouraged that. Because you couldn't do it any other way. So you're either in it or you're not. But of course, in later when we had teams like Sagino and Flash Cycles, we worked together, of course, because it was in our interest for Eddie Barron, you know, for the cycle shop. So we didn't need to be in an outside shop.
Okay, so we're up to 1973 now, and I'm going to cheat a little bit because I've got a few notes here. So I can see in 1974 you've become a pro rider for Peugeot.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
But you've also done the Perth to Sydney Transcontinental record. Just tell me the order, what that came in what order, and how that came about, and again where you're at with training. How does someone train to break a cross Australia record?
Well, I'd had a good season on the road. And I got
73 and 74 or
74. In 74, I had a good season on the road. I'd won a couple of road races, and I think Stangurney or something like that, and another one. And I'd fastest time in 4 races in the Midland 100, the Beverley, and a couple of others. I can't recall what they were. The Doug Jones, something like that.
Oh yeah.
And another I got fastest time in, and I can't think what it was. It wasn't Kalgoorlie because I got dropped in Kalgoorlie, but there was another one. So anyhow, I was riding pretty well. And the rider I was riding with off scratch most of the time was Mike Dye. Mike Dye, heard of Mike Dye?
I've heard of the name.
Mike Dye. He'd won the Victorian Junior Championship and almost won the Australian Championship. So generally, the scratch group was Mike Dye, Kevin Spencer, Neil Provis, Warren Rudd, and myself. So it was a pretty handy scratch group. But the better we went, the bigger the handicaps got, you know, because Spike Perrich was a handicapper, and he was, I guess he was trying to be fair to the field as a handicapper, you know, to give everyone a chance. But he didn't give, we never got up once. We never got up once. But we don't, but going back to that Collie Donnybrook with that chop going on. Graham McVilly and Kevin Spencer were on scratch on their own. Kevin got dropped fairly early, before Mumblup, he got dropped. Macca rode it on his own. And got time.
Wow. Yeah.
And we were working 8, 10, 12 of us working turns, and Macca still got time. That was one of the most exceptional efforts I've ever seen.
It's got to be brought up. Were there any suspicions that he was like on anything, or
no? There never was.
Okay.
No. I think he was pretty straight. He was pretty straight. When he first came here, and I rode road races, I couldn't believe how strong he was. Because even sitting on his wheel was like sitting behind a motorbike, and if he got out his slipstream, he got spat. I couldn't believe it. You know, he was, yeah. And that was in '73. You know, yeah. But Yeah, coming back to 74, of course, we had the Midland 100 where it was, I think there was only 3 of us on the scratch. 3 or 4 of us. I can't remember whether Kevin Spencer was with us or not. It was Warren Rudd, Mike Dye and myself. I think it was only 3 of us actually on the scratch. Warren Rudd got spat on the first lap and it left just Mike Dye and myself.
Just for the benefit of listeners, can you just tell me the Midland 100, the course, and just where it sat in the hierarchy of races? Because obviously there's the Beverley to Perth, which we'll come to, and the Midland 100. Which one was rated the more prestigious, or the harder, or the more attractive?
Well, the Beverley was the hardest, but the Midland was the one that was more prestigious because it had a history like the Beverley, but it was an event that more riders were interested in riding because the course was flat.
What sort of numbers of riders are we talking about now?
Probably close to 100 riders in the Midland, whereas the Beverley would probably be about 50. You know, lots of riders decided, no, there's crocodiles on those hills, you know.
Oh, hills.
Yeah. But the course started at Midland Town Hall, went out to Upper Swan, over the Upper Swan Bridge, turned left, down West Swan Road, back to Guildford, near the railway crossing, turned left there, past Guildford College, past the Town Hall, and 4 laps of that circuit. Plus a little dog leg at the start to make up the 100 miles. Yeah.
What sort of crowds would you have there? Were the roads closed off?
No, the roads were open, but there were little traffic, to be honest with you. There was nothing out there. I mean, there was no vines or any. There was nothing out there.
But spectators?
Yes. Big crowds of spectators lining the finish.
And what? Oh, the finish.
Yeah. Well, at the finish, and also on the Upper Swan Bridge, just after the Upper Swan Bridge, you could stand on a hill and look back and see the Great Northern Highway. So you could watch the riders come up there, and probably about 5 minutes later they come to where you were. So you could see a fair bit of the course. Mm-hmm. So there used to be big groups of riders spectators up on that hill, and at the finish, I mean, it was just your mums and dads and locals that come out. But yeah, there were hundreds at the finish of the Midland, hundreds of people at the finish of the Midland. The Beverley not so much, because it didn't finish at Maylands anymore. It finished at where did it finish now? It finished at Eden Hill. I think Eden Hill it finished. So distance was roughly the same, because when you come down Red Hill, you'd cut through the back of Oakover Road. Do I can't remember, a bit of a zigzag, and you'd end up at the back of Lord Street in Bassendean, or Lord Street in Eden Hill, and then it finished by the pub that's no longer there. So it was roughly the same distance. It was still 160 odd kilometres, but it just didn't finish at Maylands. You couldn't, because there's traffic lights and all sorts.
Okay, so you've done the Middle of 100. Now, again, I'm just interested to know, so you're invited to ride for Peugeot, or you've done the Transcontinental? Because did you do the Transcontinental and then that led to a deal?
It led to the deal with Peugeot. Okay. It led to the deal with Peugeot because if we can go to that then.
What was the inspiration for
Well, I'd ridden the Australian professional road title, in Port Arlington in Victoria, and Mike Dye had broken away on the finishing circuit, and I'm not sure, I think it was 10 laps of the finishing circuit. You go out, God knows where, to come back, and it was 10 laps of the finishing circuit at Port Arlington, which was about a 3-mile block, I think, and anyhow, he'd broken away probably with 20 miles to go, 30 kilometres to go, and I was riding as anchorman to make sure, to disrupt the chase, basically. So I'd sit on wheels, chase down guys, and just sit on them when I caught them, and did nothing. And it was really making them going pretty dark on me. But then Mike Dye went and fell off. He went into a corner too fast and crashed. So that was the end of my efforts to help him to win. But the organisers of the race was so impressed with the way I was riding and how I was handling it, they invited me to ride a Sun Tour.
Okay. Yep.
So I thought, yep, okay. So our season finished here long before the Sun Tour, a month before the Sun Tour. So my wife was taking me out training behind the motorbike. I was doing 100 miles twice a week behind a motorbike around the Chittering Valley and whatever, so keeping up the training. 2 weeks before the Sun Tour, I got a message from Stan Fennell, or Stan Fennell, he's pronounced. You know Stan Fennell? I don't know. He was the secretary for the League of Wheelmen here. He got a letter back from the organisers saying they didn't think I was up to the rigours of the Sun Tour, and sorry, but we've had to reject my entry.
Okay.
And I thought, Christ, I've been training my guts out here, so what do I do? And I thought, I know what, I'll have a dash at the Perth-Sydney record. You know, just out of spite. I thought, I'll give it a go. Yeah. And anyhow, I tried to get sponsors, and no one wanted a bar of it at first because you're wasting your time. It's on the shelf, but Peter Robinson's wife knew a guy in the Trotting Association, the WA Trotting Association, who was a trainer, and he was also involved with the committee. And and she approached him and said, "Look, any chance of the Trotting Association sponsoring a rider?" And they could see a bit of a peg to hang it on, you know. I race against a trotter at Gloucester Park. I ride with a cycling jersey with WA Pacing Cup on. Benson and Hedges. Well, Benson and Hedges. Yeah, it's like the cigarette company. Yeah, okay. When I get to Sydney, I then race a trotter at Harold Park. You know, as sponsorship for the West Australian. And okay, so they put up some money. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't a great deal. It was probably about $1,000. So it wasn't a great deal for what was needed.
Was it enough to cover your expenses?
No,
you think?
not at all. Okay. Nowhere near. Yeah. Nowhere near. But it was a start. It was a start. And then Rod Slater from Eurocars. You know Rod Slater?
No.
Peugeot Eurocars. Rod Slater was already importing Peugeot bikes into WA, the fold-up bikes and the racing bikes and all that sort of thing. And in fact, he was supplying fold-up bikes to the cricket team, the Australian cricket team, so they could ride to the WAHCC on Peugeot fold-up bikes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he had his eye to a bit of promotion, and he heard about it, and he wanted a piece of it. He said, "Look, I'll give you a bike, and I'll cover the expenses of whatever." So Warren Rudd was working for him at the time, so he'd obviously approached Warren Rudd and said, "Look, is he capable of it?" And Warren Rudd said, "Well, he's not going to give up," kind of thing. And anyhow, Rod decided to take it on, and he put up, I don't know how much money. Ken Norris was also involved. Ken Norris, he found other sponsors. Once I got it going, lots of people wanted to be involved once they saw it was a goer. And we got Adidas, a local butcher. We got all sorts of people. The great signboard on top of this bus, you know. And anyhow, so I now had the financial backing to do it, and the team was Peter Robinson, Ken Norris, Stan Hastings, who was he was the timekeeper. He was the official timekeeper. Spike Perrich was the referee. Spike Perrich, he was the referee, and my wife, she was dog's body, did everything. Okay. So there was. What,
and they're all following it.
Yeah, they were.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll just give it. Excuse me a second while I just. There's the bus and there's the car. That was following.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So I'm just quickly noting 3 pictures.
That was me on the.
That's a substantial
undertaking.
Undertaking. Yeah.
Yeah. See, someone had to follow me the whole time. Someone had to be in view the whole time. So you couldn't just have a bus or a car.
Yeah.
You see, because someone had to stop for provisions, petrol, whatever.
Yeah.
So they had to. So there had to be someone, and every border, I had to have an official observer from that state come out to the border to meet me.
Oh, okay.
So the
logistics, I suppose. Or not
well,
logistics,
the hurdles they put in front of us to try and make it difficult, and that was a League of Women. You know, they made it seriously difficult. But we got a guy, I can't remember the guy from South Australia that came out, and then we had a guy from Victoria that came out.
So just as sort of a little bit of an aside, I suppose. So you've been riding your own bike. What were you riding before you got the Peugeot bike?
Believe it or not, a Speedlight built by Jack Foy in Maylands.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
Jack Foy in Maylands built the frame.
Yeah. He was quite a respected frame builder, wasn't he?
No, he made frame. He had made a few frames, but it wasn't his speciality.
Oh, okay.
I just asked him if he could make me a frame, and he did.
Okay. And did you sort of like know what you liked in a frame?
Yeah, I gave him the dimensions, and he followed it. It wasn't correct, the dimensions, but it was good enough.
Yeah,
it was good enough. It was near enough.
So you've then jumped on the Peugeot. Was it just like an off-the-shelf Peugeot that they had that was roughly your size?
No, I had to have a very small frame because I ride very low. So it was a 51 centimetre frame. See the lugs there outside it.
51 square? It looks...
No, the top tube was too long. I've only got a very tiny... I've got a very short head stem there. Yeah. Very short head stem. But they're
pretty upright geometry as well.
It is. It was jarring. It was too steep.
It looks too steep for across Australia, right?
But
I would have thought you.
I couldn't tell Peugeot that when they interviewed me when I got there. What was the bike like? Well, the bike was brilliant, mate.
Yeah. Now I know from previous conversation that you. This is a fantastic picture that I'm looking at. I'm looking at a large picture with Bruce on the Peugeot. Is it Stronglight Crane?
Stronglight. It's all French equipment.
You seem to remember quite well, just in case someone wants to build a little tribute bike. What sort of equipment were you running on there? So
there was Stronglight 170mm cranks, 54 45 chain rings, a nylon rear gear, a nylon simplex rear gear. The front changer I've still got, believe it or not, but it's broken. There were
6, 7 maybe? 6?
5.
5? Yeah.
Maillard hubs, French hubs, Maillard hubs.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what the rims were.
Centerpool brakes?
Yeah, Mafac centerpools.
Yeah.
It was basically all French equipment.
Yeah.
Campac pedals I had because they were my pedals off the other bike.
So I see you wearing shoes there and not thongs. We'll come back to the thongs maybe.
Yeah, that's a bit down the track.
Okay, we'll get back to that.
But there's a fair lineup.
Oh right, okay, and there's
all the signage of the sponsors.
So we're just looking for the benefit of listeners. We're just looking at a news magazine article.
That was
we'll get a copy of that, and that will be made available somehow or another.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. Oh, so there's quite a lot of quite a lot of stuff. Fantastic. We can go through that. Great. So tell me a little bit about the ride. So so you've been training. The timing. I'm interested to know about the timing. So you did it in 8 days, 11 hours.
11 days.
11 days, 6 hours.
No,
now,
11 days, 29 minutes. 11 days, 6 hours was Vic Brown's. That's the record I beat.
Oh right. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. How do they time that? Is it just time on the bike?
No, the clock starts as soon as you leave.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So so it's actual the riding time. I'm not sure how much the riding time was, but as ever.
So So my apologies. I thought it was 11 days, 6 hours, but even 11 days, 6 hours. Just roughly, I worked out the distance was about 4,500 kilometres.
Yeah. And
it averaged on average about 380 kilometres per day. Is that tally with what you remember?
Well, in actual fact, it was You can't really break it down that way, because on the Nullarbor, on the dirt, I only did 90 miles one day because it was impossible to ride.
Right.
As you may be aware, you've been across it.
I have, yeah.
The corrugations were savage.
Just again for listeners, at that stage, the Nullarbor was still unsealed and notorious for corrugations.
Yeah. Anyhow, they were doing no maintenance on that road because they were building a new road by the coast. So there was no resources being put to maintain that particular dirt road, limestone road, whatever you like to call it. Yeah. And the corrugations were so savage that it was sometimes impossible to ride on it, and I was riding in the spinifex and scrub off the road because it was easier to ride in and out the bushes rather than ride on the road. But when I got to Ivy Tanks, it was sand on limestone, and it took me 3 hours to do 8 miles at one stage.
No.
Because I had to walk some of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so it was just impossible. That was the worst part of the whole trip across the Nullarbor, because the front wheel kept on dropping in the sand when I could ride, and I go straight over the handlebars. And Stan Hastings, who was the timekeeper, and he noted in his notebook that I came off 15 times straight over the handlebars. Not going very fast, probably only doing 10, 12 kilometres an hour, but as soon as the front wheel dug in, straight over.
Because, you must be thinking to yourself every time you've hit one of these patches that you think, there goes the record, there goes the record. Where were your spirits there? They would have sunk through the floor, wouldn't they?
At Nullarbor Station, I was so shagged, and that was still on the dirt, and I still had dirt to come. Yeah. I was so shagged that, in fact, we pulled the pin about 10 miles, about 20 kilometres from Nullarbor Station. We hung a ribbon on a bush. They'd said, get in the bus, and they drove to Nullarbor Station. And the following morning, I couldn't get up. I was so shagged I couldn't get up, and I felt so ill that I just had to lay there. And by about midday, I started to feel okay, and I said, "Okay, I think I can go," because the lads were already saying, "Well, look, we'll give it up, we'll turn back." I said, "Well, no, I think I can go on." So they drove me back to where the ribbon they tied on the bush, put me back on the bike, and I carried on. Yeah. So lost a lot of time there, lost probably about 12 hours there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so...
because what did you break the record by? I believe it was only by 6 hours or something. 6
hours. It would have been more, because when I got to the outskirts of Sydney, Sid Freshwater, who was the League of Wheelmen secretary for New South Wales, he came out to meet me, and he called the police department and said, "Look, we've got a rider here, it's coming." And the police said, "Look, he can't possibly come in now, it's rush hour. He can't possibly ride in, it's just too dangerous, and we couldn't help him. If you can just wait at that motel, and we'll give you the shout when you can come in." So I lost 2 hours there, it would have been inside 11 hours, so I had to wait 2 hours. But then when I got the okay, I had 2 police outriders riding alongside me, 2 police motorbikes, stopping traffic all the way into Sydney.
Oh, okay, that would have made up for it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't make up for it, because I was only 30, 40 kilometres out, so I couldn't possibly make up for it.
No.
Yeah. But as ever, I got a free ride in. Yeah. But the problem is, when I got to St Martin's Place, where the post office, where the finish was, the bus wasn't in sight. So they couldn't give me a time until the bus saw me. So even though it's listed as 11 hours 29 minutes, it was probably quite a bit faster than that. Yeah. But they couldn't give me a time because they couldn't see me.
Yeah.
So there's a few factors there that.
Wow.
And funnily enough, I only punctured once apparently.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I mean, what were you riding singles across the way?
Yeah.
And what were they, like 23Cs or something like that, or?
I don't know. I didn't look enough. Just right.
Right. Yeah.
We had heaps of singles in the bus, but I didn't. Peter Robinson was looking after the bike. Yeah. I just sat on it, so I didn't have to do nothing. I just jumped on it and off I went again.
Wow! Yeah. I bet you didn't want to look at a bike for a while after that.
No, they made me ride back. They made me ride back every day. They made me ride about 40, 50 k's every day. So I rode behind the bus every day, 40 or 50 kilometres down the bus, until we got to the Nullarbor. They said, no, you can't. You got to keep. You can't just stop. Yeah, which is correct, of course. Yeah. But when we got to Sydney, we were put up at a motel, all of us, and Peugeot paid for all that. All that. So we was there for several days because I had television interviews and all sorts.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So I can't remember how many days I was there, but while we were there, it occurred to me that this is costing a fortune. Can we? And I had to go to Peugeot. And did an interview with them at their head office, and I didn't ask what it was costing them. And I let it slide, because I thought, well, it's probably not a pertinent question to ask. But when I got back to Perth, I found out that Rod Slater had funded it out of his own pocket.
Oh, really?
He'd funded it out of his car business own pocket.
Oh, right.
On the basis that Peugeot would refund him if I broke the record, because Peugeot didn't think I'd do it either.
Oh, right.
So Rod Slater was funding it all, and of course, when I broke the record, he got reimbursed. But I didn't know that. I thought Peugeot were paying for it.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So that was an undertaking.
And I still keep in touch with Rod.
Do you want to have a break?
No, all right. Unless you want a break.
No. Great. Oh, that's good. Right. Oh, where do you go after that?
I don't know. But
when you got back to Perth, was there a little bit of fanfare for you?
Not really. I mean, the local paper, like the Daily News, came out and took a photograph, and that was about it. So there was no great fanfare. And Stan Fennell put on a bit of a reception for me at the Peugeot shop, which it was nothing really. It was just an afternoon tea sort of thing.
And so, I believe that they didn't give you the bike they didn't want the bike to hang on a wall, and you didn't keep the bike either.
No, I didn't.
What happened to it?
I don't know. I really don't know what happened to that bike, because
did you hold on to it and you got rid of it?
Yeah, I did. Okay. I had the bike. Okay. I had two bikes, but one went back into stock because I never used it. I used the same bike the whole way. And
you had two?
They supplied two, but I only rode on one. So the bike that I didn't use went back into the Peugeot stock. Yeah. But I kept the one I rode. Okay. And I really don't know. I think I remember what I did to it. I had the top tube shortened because it was 23-inch top tube, and I ride a 21-inch top tube. Right. Because that stem I rode was only a 2-inch stem. Yep. The one on the bike, I had only a 2-inch stem, and it was too steep. So I changed the angles as well. I changed the angles slightly, and that's one top tube. It was virtually unrideable after I changed it. It just didn't. It didn't steer properly or anything. So I don't know what. I think I just flogged it. I can't remember what I did with it, but I didn't keep it. I shouldn't have done anything with it, of course.
Never mind. You wouldn't be the first.
No. It didn't occur to me the significance of it.
Yeah, that's right.
So I went back to riding my Speedlike, sprayed it white and put Peugeot stickers on it.
Good stuff. Okay, so that's 1974. So pro rider for Peugeot. You competed in races in a Peugeot team.
Yeah. The Peugeot team was Mike Dye.
And this was purely a West Australian.
Yeah. Yep. Mike Dye, Neil Provis, Warren Rudd, and myself. That was a four, and we'd ride off scratch. And people say we look like Chinese checkers all wearing the same, checkered outfit. So we rode as a team. So that's why we never involved in chops. We didn't need to. It was,
And how long did that team go for?
It continued up until about 1980, because I seem to remember there were still riders, not us of course, there were still riders riding in Peugeot gear, So they were obviously still sponsored, but I think they were sponsored directly from the eastern states, not via Rod Slater, Eurocars, who was the agent, of course.
Yeah. Did the team ever at any stage compete nationally? Would they go to any races over?
We rode the Sun Tour.
Oh, you did ride the Sun Tour?
Mike Dye and myself rode the Sun Tour. But you didn't exactly ride for Peugeot. You had Peugeot gear, Peugeot Nix, but you were given a town top. You represented a town.
Right.
I represented Dunilliquin.
Oh, okay.
Mike Dye, I can't remember who he represented, but we weren't in the same team. But there were Peugeot riders there, and we rode as a Peugeot team, even though we're all in different different tops. Different towns representing different towns.
Yeah.
There was Frank Atkins was Peugeot. I think John Trevorrow was Peugeot. Who else? Mike Dye and myself, of course. And there was a couple of others. I think Don Allen was. So some pretty handy riders.
And what were their ages then, just roughly?
I would have been 30. Yeah.
Yep. And they were roughly the same age as well, or do you have some youngsters coming through?
They were. I think we're all roughly the same age, around the 28, 32 mark, that sort of age. Yeah.
And at that stage, you were considered like senior riders and like in your prime, or something like that?
Yeah. So we were. We were competitive. We would have been competitive anywhere. You know, whether we've been here or in Europe, we would have been fairly competitive.
Right. Yeah.
Probably got a thrashing, but we would have been reasonably competitive.
Okay.
I think. I mean, like Diane rode the Tour de France. He several other riders were former Olympians that were then riding professional. Like Don Wilson was a Olympian. John Trevorrow, Hilton Clark. There were several riders there that certainly could hold their own internationally. But of course, Australia is such a long way from anywhere. It's not like just crossing a border, is it?
Yeah. Okay, so moving along now, I see in 1975, second in the national championships.
Yeah.
Do you remember much about that?
Yes, I do actually. It was in South Australia. It was out of somewhere out of Adelaide, and I think it had a fairly nasty hill each lap, and they were big laps. I think they were like 25-mile laps.
So it goes through Adelaide town central?
Through the hill. No, it's up in the hills. Up in the hills
or whatever.
Somewhere around Paracombe, around there. Chain of ponds up that end, around there. So it was an undulating course with one pretty.
What sort of distance were we talking about?
It was 132 kilometres that year.
Yep.
Yeah. And what happened? What happened is in the. I think at about on the end of the first lap, I attacked, and Don Wilson came with me. A South Australian rider came with me, Dennis Chant, I think his name was, and one of the Tasmanians. What was the Tasmanian's name? I can't remember his name. So there's four of us, but a Tasmanian was the top rider. And he must have had a bad day because he got shot and the South Australian got shot. And he left Don Wilson and myself out in front. Right. Well, we only had nearly 200 kilometres to go out the front, and we just swapped turns all day. We never saw the bunch again. And he jumped me on the last hill. The last hill. He stayed back for a fair while. He didn't come through, and I thought, oh, he's bluffing here, but what can I do about it? So I just kept going. And about 2 miles from the finish, he just went down the other side of the road, and I couldn't get on. Yeah. He beat me by about 200 metres, I think.
Oh, right, well, you would have done the same to him if you could?
If I could, of course you would. Yeah. But, trying to think now, if I can find it. Who was that other rider that was in the break? Can't think what his name was now. Should know these things. Hang on, here's something. Graham Bentine.
Oh, great. Oh, yeah.
Hang on. Can't find it now. Because in the storyline somewhere. Oh, in the story. Hang on now. Yeah, here's the story of it. The starting point for the 1975 championships was the little town of Burwood, northeast of Adelaide. It was an interesting course over rolling hills with many turns to stimulate rider interest. The Victorians had by far the strongest team, comprising Hilton Clark, Graham McVilly, John Trevorrow, Don Wilson, Ken Evans, and new find Peter Basanko. And it was hard to imagine victory coming from another state, although the West Australian combination looked well balanced. I got it wrong. The actual course was spread over 2 circuits, beginning with 3.5 laps of one circuit and then 6 laps of another smaller circuit.
Mm-hmm.
And the action was quickly forthcoming when on the first lap a 4-man break was established. It consisted of Don Wilson, Bruce Hunt, Neville Allison from Tasmania and Brian Newcombe of South Australia. What chance of success with 180 kilometres still to ride? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so West Australia was doing pretty well there because I think Kevin Spencer, didn't he win the national champs in like 74?
73.
73.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Warren Rudd was third in 1974 and I was second in 1975.
Yeah.
So he was up there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. But that was Don Wilson and myself. I must have been struggling.
Oh, okay.
See, that's my Peugeot. That's my Speedlight Peugeot.
Speedlight Peugeot, yeah. Okay, so we'll grab a copy of that.
All right. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, around this time as well, you set fastest time for 2 years in a row in the Beverley to Perth. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, in 74.
So let's just go back. You didn't mind hills? You were training hills?
No, I was pretty handy on hills.
Mm-hmm.
Not real good on...
Because how tall are you?
175.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And roughly what weight would you have been around about then?
Around then I've been 68, 69 kilos, I guess.
Oh, you were so pretty stocky. You wouldn't...
Yeah, I wasn't skinny, no. No. Well, I'm not much over it now. I'm 74 kilos now.
Yeah, because
so,
a lot of climbers are like low to mid 60s, aren't they? Really?
Yeah. I wasn't crash hot on steep hills, on real steep hills,
Okay.
but I was good on long grinding hills because I could push a fairly big gear.
Oh, okay.
You know, which was my forte really.
Okay.
Is sitting on a big gear and just grinding it.
Yeah.
So in
now, do you with the 2 years that you figured in, how many times did you ride the Beverley?
I only rode it 3 times.
Okay.
The first time in 73, I think Henk Vogels won that year in 73.
Yep.
Well, he got time in 73.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can't remember whether he won it. I think we did get up that year. And I think Henk Vogels won it.
Yep.
I was there in the gallop, but that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you remember? I mean, you would impress me if you remembered each individual year. Or events or anything that happened, sort of thing. But just tell me about, do you remember anything specific about those races or?
Yeah.
Hard competition, hard.
Yeah.
It was just a big social gathering with a bunch of mates.
Yeah, right. No, I remember in 73. I was on scratch on somebody. I was on block, I think.
Okay.
And I remember Dave Jones was in our bunch. I don't know if you ever remember him. He was a strong rider. He was in the SAS at one stage. Anyhow, we come to that railway crossing just out of Beverley. And it's a diagonal railway
crossing.
It's
not even out of Beverley. It's still in Beverley, isn't it? That one? The one I'm thinking of.
No, just out of Beverley, travelling towards York. Anyhow, Dave Jones got to the front and he said, "Watch out for the crossing, lads. Be careful." Comes to the crossing, Dave Jones falls off. Everybody else was still upright, so we waited for him.
Oh, no. Right.
In 74, it was only 3 of us on scratch. It was Mike Dye, myself, and Warren Rudd. And I can't remember what the gap was to block, but it was quite substantial. I think it was about 7 minutes. And we eventually caught block, and Steve Pember was on block. Remember Steve Pember? No, he won the junior Australian junior road title at one stage. He was on block with quite a handy group. Anyway, my dive myself eventually caught them just out of 2J. And Pember then just sat on. He sat on. Warren Rudder got spat, so it was only Mike Dye and myself, and we caught the block. And only Pember could hang on as we came out of the 2J up 9 Mile up there. We spat everyone else, but Pember. Pember just sat on and didn't do it. He didn't do a tap. He did not do a tap. And when we came to Gidgee, Big Gidgee, Pember just stormed past us, gone. I tried to catch him, I dropped Mike Dye, so I'm chasing Pember, Mike Dye's chasing me, so we're spread out. Anyhow...
Is there much chat going on between you then? Are you
we called him all sorts of names, I'll tell you, Pember, because he sat on for 40 miles, 40 miles, didn't do it, and certainly didn't do tactical, I mean, don't blame
Still happening now.
Don't blame it. But it was annoying all the same, because we're trying to get to the front. That's where the money was, at the front, not on fastest time. Anyhow, got to the finish, and I got fastest time, as you know, and I thought I was the first rider inside 4 hours. I did 3:57.
Right. Yeah.
And it was actually printed in the paper, like first rider inside 4 hours for the 165 kilometres. And it wasn't until later on, Stephen Pember approached me. He said, "You wasn't the first rider inside 4 hours. I was. I didn't get time, but I got in a minute before you." So he was obviously inside 4 hours as well.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh,
which was right, of course.
Yeah,
he was.
Yeah,
he was the first rider, not me. But a guy named John Hewson won it. I never heard of him before, but he was obviously a pretty handy one. They were off 26 minutes, and we missed catching them by a couple of minutes. Off 26 minutes, and they ended up with a bunch of about 30. You're not going to catch them.
I mean, obviously, all the roads were sealed by the time you were.
Oh yeah.
So did you like the course? Was it a good course?
Yeah, I liked the course. I liked the course. I liked the course. It suited me. I mean, it was exactly my type of race. But the only snag was, of course, the handicapping was savage. Which it made it a bit of a joke, really, because some riders were getting close to an hour start. An hour start in 160 kilometres, and an hour start. They're fresh, and they're probably doing turns. They're doing close to 40 kilometres an hour fresh on the flat part of it. Okay, so in actual fact, you haven't got 160 kilometres catch them in. You've only got 120 because they're already 40 kilometres up the road. When you look at it from that point of view, the chance of, although we did catch a lot of riders, but it was always the middle groups that managed to hang on.
So the field for the Beverley to Perth isn't necessarily it's self-selecting. A rider would say, "Yep, I'm going to the Beverley Perth this year." You. Is it? Am I right in saying that?
No. What?
That you wrode it because you wanted to ride, not because you were necessarily skilled enough, or
no, you rode it because you wanted to ride it. But riders of that era used to ride to get a mark, so they deliberately ride below their optimum performance, so their mark would go out further, because the prize for winning was quite substantial. To actually cross the line first.
You remember how? I think I've got this written down somewhere.
So it was handy to get a good mark. So you get riders. I mean, I won't call names, but there's certain riders you knew were better than what they were riding, and they were deliberately stalling, and so they ride half a season not to win or not to be seen to do well to get a mark. It was a strange.
Can you remember who the handicapper was?
Yeah, it's Spike Perrich. Perrich. Right. Jack was his name, Jack Perrich, but everyone called him Spike. Spike Perrich. He was the handicapper, and I guess he tried to be fair as best he could,
Mm-hmm.
but he didn't have many time for the back markers because we never got up.
Yeah,
We never got up, no matter what.
Yeah.
You know, I think the following year, 1975, there was only Mike Dye and myself on scratch, just two of us, and Block were on 8 minutes. They had 8 minutes start, and one of their riders didn't turn up, so they put them out to 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So they gave them an extra 2 minutes because, and there was, I think there was 8 or 9 in their bunch, and there's 2 of us to chase them.
Yeah.
Well, Mike Dye and myself, we caught them. We caught them before we got to just out of 2J, between Northam and 2J. We caught Block, and there was all sorts of accusations. You couldn't have possibly caught us in that time. You must have been behind Stan Fennell's car, you know. Yeah, we got all this, you know.
Yeah.
And we did, and Stan Fennell in his car was behind us, and he said, "Well, you were sitting on 50 kilometres an hour for most of that time from Beverley to 2J. You were sitting on nearly 50 kilometres an hour." Yeah, and then but
because wind can be a bit of a factor up there.
it can, yeah. It's I'm trying to think. Yeah, it was a southeasterly on the first bit, which was advantageous, I think. Yeah. So it's blowing us up towards the valley. But then when you turn off at 2J to Midland, it's crosswind from the left shoulder.
Yeah. But there's a lot of downhill there, so it's
a lot of uphill as well.
Yeah.
And I've noticed as I've got older, gravity's got stronger.
It pulls everything down. Yeah. So just a little bit about the crew. Did you have? Was there sort of like a neutral car that's carrying spare wheels or anything like that, or did you have any support crew or anything like that? I mean, if you came off, or not if you came off. I'm assuming that they had.
There wasn't a support crew. You had to change a single if you punctured.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And if you crashed, you were just out of the race, and someone would pick you up.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
But no, if you punctured, you had to. In actual fact, going back to 1973, I did puncture between Northam and 2J. I did puncture, had to change a single, and got back in. But fortunately, Scratch hadn't called us by that time.
Okay.
So I got back on with Scratch.
How quick could you change a single back then?
Oh, probably inside 2 minutes. Yeah. But of course, when you pumped it up, you probably only had about 60 pound in it because you
could just use a hand pump.
Yeah. Just pump it up.
Were you ever nervous about them coming off? Have you ever had a single come off?
No, I've never had one come off. But Mike Peterson, I think his name should be Peterson, but Mike Peterson came over from the eastern states and rode here in that 73 season. His single came off in a crit in Fremantle, and I crashed into him when he fell off, and his tyre was off the rim. Yeah. And somebody got a photograph of it with his tyre off and me falling over him.
Oh, right.
But I've never had a single come off.
Oh, okay.
And I think that's the only time I've ever seen one fall off in a race.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. I just happened to be the rider on his wheel. No, we got pretty... Because in English time trials, in England, of course, you had a single and your pump.
Yeah.
And I'd had a few punches in time trials in England, and I'd actually changed the tyre and got back in and carried on going.
Yeah.
And you could say to yourself, take 2 or 3 minutes off your time. So whatever you did, it was probably 2 or 3 minutes faster than that.
Yeah. Cool. Now, so now you're... so now we're up to 1978 and you're about 34 years of age, and you go and do a tour of Britain.
Yeah.
So just...
Well, I got... I've been riding road races here, but... and doing okay. I can't recall anything special. I think I was third in the West Australian 100 kilometre title and things like that, but nothing that I can really... nothing outstanding. Anyhow, I applied to the League of Wheelmen to nominate for the world titles, the Australian the world titles in Germany, and they gave me the okay. They cleared me to ride it, even though I'd not been at the top of my game at the time. But they selected me in a team of 6, I think it was, and I got in. So I went over to Europe and rode a few races and whatever. And anyhow, while I was there, riding races in England, and riding up at Harrogate, which is a Harrogate week, cycling week up there. One of the riders that had already been nominated for the Tour of Britain couldn't ride. He got sick, and they asked me, "Are you interested in taking his place?" I thought, "Yeah, why not?" But I was nowhere near the standard I was back in 74, 75. I was nowhere near that level. And I thought, oh yeah, give that a start. So anyhow, I took the place of Ian Greenosh, was the rider I took the place of. And the first stage was from Motherwell to Whitley Bay, 148 mile stage, the first stage, through the hills, through the lowlands of Scotland. The lowlands, they were pretty steep.
I was about to say they're pretty steep there.
And then across the top end of the Pennines to Whitley Bay. Anyhow, I lasted to about 40 kilometres go, about 25. I remember some Dutchman asking me how far to go, and I said, about 40 kilometres, and it all hell let loose from then, you know. And I got spat with about a dozen other riders, and I finished about 2 minutes behind the main bunch, but still
not bad.
Still there, still there.
Yeah.
And anyhow, the following day, it went from Whitley Bay to Manchester, I think. Whitley.
Okay, I'm just going to go back now. So this is education for me. So over how many days does this go for?
6 days.
6 days.
Yeah.
And on average, roughly how many kilometres a day?
Kilometres, roughly.
Or how many hours in a saddle?
Roughly 200 kilometres a day, roughly.
Oh, okay.
Roughly, give or take. I think apart from the last stage, which was a criterium at Crystal Palace on the motor race track.
Oh, okay.
At Crystal Palace. Was it Crystal Palace or Brands Hatch? Can't remember. I think it was
Brands Hatch definitely.
One of those anyhow. One of the tracks.
Okay.
I think it was Crystal Palace that was a race track too. Anyway, apart from that, it was about 200 kilometres a day.
Okay.
The following day was from Whitley Bay to Manchester, and it went straight across the backbone of Britain, across the Pennines.
What time of the year are we talking?
Talking about summer, be August. Summer in Britain, summer.
Be
about August,
Mm-hmm.
So the rain,
nice and warm.
The rain wasn't as severe as it might have been.
No clouds to ride through.
No. Well, far from the top of the hills. Anyhow, got to some godforsaken hill. I can't remember the name of the hill now, but when I looked at my bike in the morning to go out, and I saw this dinner plate sprocket on the back on the back wheel. And I thought, my God, there's what's coming up here? And I needed it. And about half a dozen of us got spat on this hill. And one of them was Dave Dave Broadbent. He was the British criterium champion. He got spat. There was a Spaniard.
So you keep in good company.
Yeah, a Spaniard and another couple of Brits. I think. Sid Barris got spat. You heard of Sid Barris, maybe? He's a top English rider, but yeah, he got spat. And so, anyway, kept going, and eventually it was only me. Everyone else pulled out, and I was on my own. And I had the bus behind me. I had the Sagwagon bus behind me.
Bus of shame.
Yeah. Come on, Bruce, pull out race. Come on, get in bus. I'm no sodger, I'll keep going. So I kept going, and I scraped just inside the time limit, inside. And the following day was Manchester to Blackpool, a devious course from Manchester to Blackpool.
Yeah.
And I think we went back in
as the crow flies, that's not really a long distance, is it?
No, but we went back over these bloody fellows. Anyhow, sure enough, I got spat again with a few other riders, and the other riders pulled out, left me on my own with a bus behind me again. I thought, oh no. And there were some serious riders in the race, like Van der Velde from Holland, from the Netherlands, and some good riders, they're international riders there. And anyhow, I kept going and going, and there was no sign of any evidence of banana skins or anything in the road. I kept going, and I came into a town of Kendal, and I thought, Kendal's not even on this map, not even on the route. And the bus was following me, so they followed me, the two of us. And there was a policeman walking round the Kendal town square. I said to this police officer, I said, did a bike race come past? He said, aye lad, there were a bike race last week.
Hey, I'm not that slow.
I'd gone completely off course. So the lads in the bus, they thought it hilarious. They said, come on Bruce, get in the bus. We'll put you back on course. So I got in the bus. And we drive, and I said, well, you better let me out. No, we'll take you nearly into Blackpool. So I shouldn't really say, but got nearly into Blackpool. I said, no, get out the bus now. So I got out the bus, and peddler got back riding, and they were killing themselves laughing in the bus, like the riders that pulled out. And
because all the riders are in the bus as well.
Yeah, all the riders that pulled out, they're in the bus.
Didn't they want to jump off as well? Or?
No, well, they pulled out much earlier, you know. Yeah. And I was nearly there, apart from the fact I'd gone about 10 miles off course. Yeah. Whether I'd have made it inside the time limit or not, so neither here nor there. Yeah. So anyhow, get to about 5 miles out of Blackpool, get out the bus, quiet area, get out the bus, back on the bike, and come into Blackpool, the promenade there, where all the major races from the promenade, the Blackpool Tower and the whole thing. Yeah. There's still a big crowd there, and I come down the promenade, and the commentator, and here comes Bruce Hunt from Australia, and he's only 5 minutes down, he's been off the back for 50 miles. Or something worse to that effect, anyway. But I shouldn't really put that down on tape, but
no, that's a good story.
What does it matter?
That's a good story.
What does it matter?
Exactly.
But anyhow, I didn't get dropped again after that. And from there to Nottingham, I finished with a group off the back. Yeah. And from Corby to Southend, I finished with the bunch. Yeah. And in the crit at Crystal Palace, I think it was. I think it's Crystal Palace, somewhere else. Wherever it was, I finished in the bunch again. Yeah. So it was only those bits through the Pennine when it had steep hills, which I said to you before, I wasn't good at steep hills, not seriously steep hills. Yeah. But can we digress and go back to the Perth Sydney? Yeah. Because we kind of skipped through it. Now, what was that the reluctance for anybody to sponsor me at the time was it was the wrong time of year. I was attempting to do it in summer, in November, and everyone said, well, you're going to be riding straight into the easterly winds and it's going to be mad hot on the Nullarbor. Yeah. And sure enough, they were absolutely right. I rode the whole thing into a headwind, because once you've got an anticyclone in the bite, you've got easterly winds coming across the continent. And so, it was... Is the record... Now, the record, is it always... Does it matter which way you set it? Or do you have to... I don't know. It's only ever been... I imagine you can do it whatever way, but it's always been done from Perth to Sydney. Okay. Right. But as ever. So, on the Nullarbor, the temperature's got up to 40 degrees. Yeah. And at night when I was riding, I had to put long socks on over my knees, because it's freezing. Yeah. And as I say, the wind across the Nullarbor was another problem, because the dust that was blowing up, it was just blowing into my face. Yeah. And it was serious. It was gale force headwinds. Gale force. And I thought to myself, everyone's told me it's going to be like this, and I decided to do it anyhow. I mean, it must take a lot of mental strength to keep going, especially with what you said about the soft sand and riding through the spin effect, basically. Basically because so many people said, well, you won't do it, you won't do it. And I thought, I will do it one way or other, I'll do it. I probably rode more hours than Ian Brown, the guy that had the record. How many hours sleep were you getting, do you think? I don't know really, probably 5 hours, maybe five, possibly 5, 6.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And were you sleeping in a tent or something like that? Or
No, in the bus. In the
bus.
bus.
Okay.
Bus. We had bunks in the bus, and the Volkswagen Combi. There was bunks in that as well.
Oh, yeah. No snorers you had to share with?
I was probably the only snorer there. As I say, everyone said, well, it's the wrong time of year. But from nobody wanting to be involved in it, once I got the sponsor together, everyone wanted to be on board. They all wanted to be part of the team to do it, which was encouraging. I'm
just going to throw something in there. And again, it comes down to preparation and stuff like that. But just your comment. You mentioned before that it hadn't been sort of like, graded or maintained or whatever. But I could also imagine that, once, apart from the soft sand that you mentioned before, is that sometimes when they grade these things, what happens is they're actually taking unpacked clay, lime, whatever sort of thing, and it ends up just being like, thick, soft sort of material. So that could actually work against you, that it has been maintained sort of thing. Did you?
No, I don't think that. No, the sand that had it been graded, I think the sand was quite gritty type.
Okay.
There was other soft stuff. I think if it had filled in the corrugations a bit, but corrugations was certainly they were probably 2 inches deep, a lot of them, and you're bouncing across those.
Yeah. And how far apart are they?
Oh, only 10 centimetres apart, maybe.
Okay. Yep. So your bike is constantly.
Yeah. And as you saw from the geometry of the frame, it certainly wasn't.
Yeah. Well, you were then fighting it.
Yeah. Well, when I got to Sydney, my hands were paralysed. I couldn't even hold a cup of tea. I had to hold a cup of tea in both hands. Yeah. And when I got back to Perth, I couldn't even turn the ignition key on. I had to turn it on with both hands because my hands were paralysed. And I went to the doctor and said, "What?" They said, "Oh, we'll have to cut a ligament. We'll have to cut ligaments in your hand to release the thing." I thought that can't be right. And somebody advised me to go see a chiropractor.
Oh, okay.
And I went to see a chiropractor, and he said, "No," he said, "you've got nerves trapped in your upper neck, in your upper spine." And he did a quick clunk, and it was a bloody great crack. I heard, and the feeling come back in my hands almost immediately.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
But that was as well as that. My belly button had sort of come undone. It was swollen out from the strain. Yeah. So from the pounding on that road.
Yeah, it's almost like a mini hernia. But then the belly button never kind of seals up properly anyway, does it? I don't know.
I don't know, but it looked quite odd.
Google that one.
It looked quite odd. It went down all by itself. Yeah. But that's getting off the beaten track with that.
No, that's good to know. Good to know. And again, for listeners' reference, the WA Historical Cycle Club is planning in 2022 to do a display show on Cross Australia crossings. Yeah. So we may cover this in more detail, sort of thing. But that's just an aside.
Yeah.
Okay, so. So 78, you've done the tour of Britain. Now, just a little bit of local stuff. Is that the one that you rode a Flash on, and you were called, "Hey, is this a Flash or Flash?"
Yeah, they're calling out Flash. Come on, Flash. Well, in the crits, particularly around the town centre, the crits. Kids, come on, Flash.
So was that the speed light resprayed, or did you actually get a Flash bike?
Oh no, that was a genuine Flash. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And this one was your size, and
you
like the geometry and stuff.
Yeah, I think Tony Ellaby built it. He worked for Flash. I'm pretty sure he built the frame.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he was a frame builder at Flash at the time.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he built it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where's that bike now?
I sold it to a rider in the Southwell Cycling Club that doesn't exist anymore. The Southwell Cycling Club. It doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
but Darcy Brant Smith. He got that club together, and he actually got all the kids that were riding in that club, apart from myself. He basically got off the street. They weren't kids he pinched from other clubs. Yeah. They were kids that he kind of manufactured or got into cycling. And I've actually got a picture of that team, which includes Tony Davis. Tony Davis was
Yeah. There's, again, for listeners' information, Darcy is an interesting person that we hope to follow up on. We've had some initial conversations with him. He faced a lot of challenges at Southwell from other clubs and with some of the events that he produced, but he was also held in quite high esteem as a coach. He coached Steele Bishop. He was the first coach, Steele Bishop's first coach, who would go on to become a world champion. But the Southwell club also did really well. And what's interesting is that Darcy was right into intensive, high intensity training. Back in, I think, like maybe even as early as the 1960s and stuff like that.
I think he was.
Because I mention that because I always thought that high intensity training was just like a new fad that started in maybe the 1990s or something like that, but it's actually gone right back to the 50s.
Yeah,
So,
it did.
Yeah.
That was a Southwell club.
Yep.
There's Tony Davis.
Yep.
There's Steve Berglund.
Oh yeah. Steve, yeah.
Yep. There's myself.
Oh, okay.
And I can't remember the other guys' names now. There was another guy that was pretty handy.
Yeah.
Who was it? Not sure it was him. But as ever, that was the club as it was in 1980. I think that was.
Right. Yeah.
1980.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you were already 1980.
I think that's 1980. Might have been 81. 81.
Right. Oh, okay. You look really young there.
Oh, what are you saying now?
No, well, by 1980, so this is already after your 1970s.
Yeah.
You look
That's
like,
when I reinstated amateur.
Yeah. No, you just look really young.
Oh, well, that's me. That's me just the other year. That's Rod Slater.
Oh, Kerry Torpy.
Yeah, Kerry. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, Kerry wanted to do something for the French car magazine. I mean.
Yep.
So he said, "Can you bring some Peugeot stuff with you?" So I brought
Yeah.
some bits of Peugeot.
Yeah.
And that's outside Rod Slater's car yard at the Eurocars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Kerry's a keen. He's really keen. I mean.
Yeah.
He rode to Kalgoorlie a couple of years back.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and that's that is an opportune moment to. I won't dwell too much on this because there is a good article on the internet about your Goldfields ride.
Oh yes,
that you did in 2014, maybe. So the article was dated 2014.
Yeah.
Just really briefly, or I say briefly only because it's detailed quite well in the article, and I'll make sure that a copy somehow is retained within the club. But just a little joyride, so to speak.
Yeah.
Apart from when you were losing bottles and.
Yeah. No, it was something I wanted to do. I'd done other trips down south, and down as far as Esperance, ridden down to Esperance and whatever, and. It was a tour I wanted to do, and I just camped the whole way. I had everything I wanted was there on my bike. Cooking stuff and everything. Not that there was much that I had. But it was an area I don't think you can see properly in a car. You couldn't see it like I saw it, and I could just fossick around on the bike and roll here and roll there and.
Yeah. And I liked in the article as well, and again, this is just for listeners' benefits. I liked in the article as well how you provide a little bit of history on some of the towns that you went through, and the populations when they're at their peak, and down to the single digits that they were now. And there was I think possibly your creative line or artistic line, which was something like, and the beers were suspended in animation between their hand and their mouth.
Yeah, that was
like the whole time it stopped.
Yeah, that was places. In Sandstone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that was you wrote that article?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, no, well written. No, it's really good, and I recommend that people follow up on that one.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to have to bring this one up. So I met, I call him an adversary. I met Frank Kettle, who was also a pro rider, and he mentioned that you used to ride in thongs. Now, I'm assuming that when people hear this, they still know what thongs are, but obviously they're a rubber sandal type thing that's on the foot. Flip-flop.
Yeah.
So tell us about that period. When are we talking now? I'm assuming not when you were riding for Persia.
No. This was in the what is it? What are we now?
2020.
Early noughties, I think.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, maybe the late 90s as well. Yeah. As I had referred to earlier, I had problems with the knee, and it got progressively worse and worse and worse. And in the finish, I started putting my shoe block further back on the shoe to try and so my foot wasn't over dead centre, so the knee wasn't over dead centre, and that became painful. And
presumably this is now because you're sort of like riding in cleats and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay, and the technology is such that your foot is pretty stable in the
so
pedal.
anyhow, I thought I still want to race, go out to club races and whatever. So I thought, I'll go training in thongs. I'll go training. I'll put these mountain bike plastic pedals on and go training. I thought, this doesn't feel too bad. My knee doesn't hurt very much in this at all. So I thought, I'll go out to a race and just see how I go. So I was still riding B grade, seniors B grade, and I found I could hang on no problem at all. I thought, oh.
And now, just again for listeners' benefits, I mean, B grade is still very competitive, and there's a lot of really good cyclists in there that are knocking on the door of getting into A grade.
Yeah.
So
Murray Hall was riding.
Yeah.
And in one particular race, Murray Hall and another rider, I can't think of his name now, we broke away, and I finished third. Finished third.
So
Murray
Eddie
Hall
Holland and stuff like that, they were
on A grade.
Oh, okay.
They were on A grade. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so my thong riding lasted for about 2 years, until suddenly someone thought, now that could be dangerous. So they banned me riding. I can understand their reasoning, liability and insurance and.
Yeah.
So
now the thing is, I've never taken my racing seriously. Probably I take my mountain biking probably most seriously, sort of thing, and my road biking is all about fitness and stuff like that. But even as sort of like an amateur, I don't know that I could ride without being cleated in, sort of thing, because of the the push and pulling and stuff like that. I mean, didn't you find that your feet was after your history in cycling? Weren't you lifting your feet off the pedals?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No. You kind of develop a slightly different style of pedalling. You use your ankles more. You what they call ankling.
Scoop it.
Scoop
it around.
Yeah. On that tape, you can't see me waving.
No waving action.
So I did that for about 2 years, and I got placed in quite a few of the crits.
Are there any pictures of that?
I don't know.
I'd love to see a picture.
Not that I know of. They may well be some pictures, but I never saw any.
Yeah.
But in between them times, back in just after the Southwell time, I'm not sure I was riding with Southwell at the time, but I was working for BMX Promotions. BMX became big back in the late 70s.
Right, yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyhow, John Bastian, you heard of John Bastian? John Bastian.
Yeah.
He was the distributor of BMX components for a company called BMX Promotions. Mm-hmm. He pulled out, and John Fenton, who was running it, John Fenton, he was a speedway driver.
Very good speedway driver.
Yeah, very good. He knew me from taking photographs at the speedway and whatever. He knew that I rode bikes and whatever. He said, "Look, John's leaving. Are you interested in running the sales?" I said, "Well, I'll give it a go." Mm-hmm. And so I did it for about a year, but more and more people got into it, and it kind of made it very difficult to sell. Yeah. Because John was buying his stuff from America, and it was pricey, whereas it was coming from by that time from Japan and China.
Yeah.
So the price got coming. But anyhow, I thought, I wonder if I could convert a BMX frame to ride a road race.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought, yeah, I'll give it a go. So I got this red line frame,
Yeah.
similar to a mongoose frame, but
Yeah.
I got this red line frame, and I thought I can just about fit 24-inch singles into this. If only I had some 24-inch singles.
Yeah.
But anyhow, Terry Lack, who at that time had
Because now we're also talking about the low pro period. The low pro bikes.
Yeah, they were
running the small fronts. I think they were 24 inch.
Yeah, I think they were. Yeah. So I managed to get a pair of wheels. Terry Lack sent them over from England because he hadn't emigrated.
Yeah.
So I got these wheels and tyres and whatever. I think you got them from Dave Lloyd's shop in Wales. I think you got them from. Sent them over, and I needed a seat pillar.
A long one, yeah.
So I went down to an aircraft place in Jandakot and got this piece of chrome molly from an aircraft place. Made a seat pillar out of that, and I had a Major Taylor head stem. You heard of Major Taylor?
Yeah.
So I could extend it right out. So I managed to get a position that was almost identical to my road position.
Yeah.
And I rode a couple of races in Perth, and I did all right. And
because it's funny, as ridiculous as it sounds, at the same time, I'm almost now picturing like a 2010 Giant TCR Advanced, which was one of the first carbon fibre bikes to feature sloping top tubes and quite fat tubes and stuff like that. And a large BMX frame, it almost starts taking on the dimensions and the look of that sort of a frame.
Well,
so it's not actually that ridiculous.
But this was a tiny frame. This was a proper BMX frame.
Right.
It wasn't a cruiser frame. This is a BMX frame. Yeah. Anyhow, I rode a couple of road races here in Perth on it, and everyone sort of cracked up laughing. And I even had tops made, BMX promotion tops made. And Mick Russell rode a BMX top as well, although he was riding a conventional bike. Yeah. But I entered the top end tour in Darwin. Yeah. I'm not sure, a 3 or 4 day tour up in Darwin. And I took this bike up, and I took a proper road bike as well, just in case they arced up and said, no, you can't ride. Yeah. And they had no objection.
What year are we going? Sorry, what year are we talking about?
1980.
1980.
Okay. Yes, it had to be. It had to be 1980.
Yeah, because mountain bike, or the development of mountain bikes hadn't really. I think there were like seeds of mountain bikes starting to come out then.
There were,
but they weren't really. So most people in this top end tour were still riding road bikes.
Yeah, they were riding road bikes, proper road bikes. Okay. Yeah.
Was it sealed or unsealed?
It was sealed. Yeah, sealed. Okay, sealed. And, that was in Taiwan. Here we go. There's a picture of it there.
I am looking at a BMX framed road bike, and the seat tube looks like it's about 3 feet long. That is ridiculous.
And just to prove it, there's me there.
Oh my word. That is incredible. That is incredible. But you must have been really flexible, because the that stem is a lot lower than that seat. So you would have been very aero once you tucked down.
Oh, I was only over on the brake levers. I couldn't reach the bottom. I think I could reach it, but I only ever rode on the brake levers, I think. Yeah. But I remember coming up towards Bachelor. It was the only hilly stage in the tour, and I thought, I'll give this a dash. So I attacked, and I think the bunch was still laughing at me as I took off down the road. Anyhow, I won the stage into Bachelor.
No way. Oh dear. So you're running
there's 56
two chain rings at the front?
Or yeah, they didn't work though. It was only had 2 chain rings, so I had something to bolt it to. Yeah. I could have changed down with my hand, you know, put it on the bottom chain, but didn't need
A
to.
la Hubert Opperman or something like that. Yeah.
But,
Oh, wow. Well, that will be going into the archive as well. Amazing.
So anyway, I think I finished 7th overall. I think in the top end tour.
Oh, wow.
7th or 8th.
Wow, that's making a statement, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, it was pretty fun. It felt all right.
Yeah.
It's just the wheelbase was real short, real twitchy.
Yeah.
But other than that, after I got used to it, when I first got on it, I thought, crikey, this feels dangerous. But after I've been riding it for an hour or so, you know, as I practiced on it beforehand, it felt okay.
Yeah. I would have, in my imagination, I could imagine just ending up going over the front wheel all the time.
No,
you know, with a decent pothole or something.
No, not at all.
Once the wheel starts coming in that close.
We did come across a giant python across the road, and we all had to stop and get off and walk around it. But other than that, I didn't fall over it. Oh gosh.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, them were the days. Tell kids that today, they wouldn't believe it.
Nah.
But no, I have fun bike riding. I'm serious, but not that serious.
Yeah.
So
now I know that you're still riding now.
Yep.
Was there a period where you felt, or do you feel your career's still going? Was there a period where your cycling career sort of like went onto the back burner, or you thought, it's time to hang up my thongs, my shoes, or whatever?
Obviously, with a full-time job and a career, you know, time. You know, you're working a 5-day week as I was. And it was unusual hours. Working as a press photographer does tend to work the unusual hours. So I had to just fit in bike riding when I could. And basically, I could still compete at a reasonable level. But as I say, riding in thongs and whatever, I wasn't that serious. But this was in Taiwan. A picture here.
So we've got 4 guys in Ideal Cycle jerseys, and a guy in red and yellow in the middle. And who are we looking at here?
He was the guy in the middle is Taiwanese.
Yep.
He invited a team from West Australia to ride the Tour of Taipei, and I'm not sure what year that was now. It's probably 1996 or 97, about 97. And Stephen Lack got the invite, and one of the riders that was meant to go couldn't go. And Steve rang me up and said, "Look, are you interested in coming over and riding the Tour of Taipei?" I said, "You've got to be joking. Crikey, I'm 56 or 57 years old." He said, "Look, they're Chinamen. You've got round eyes, fair hair, you know."
I love you.
Yeah.
Ponytail? Were you wearing it? No ponytail.
He said, "Hey, it wouldn't matter. Just come." I thought, crikey, that'd be an adventure. So I went, and
So how old is Steve in that picture, roughly? Was he like 20 years younger than you, or in his 30s?
Why, he had just been born when I left England, so he'd be, well, I'm about 57 now, I'd say. So he'd be, take 25 years off that.
Oh yeah, so heading towards 30.
About 30, he's about
so
30.
who are we looking at in the picture, can you remember?
I can't remember the other lad. These two lads were more mountain bikers, mountain bike racers than road racers.
Oh, okay.
And the Tour of Taipei actually incorporated a mountain bike race as well, which I didn't compete in.
Yep.
They did. He ran second in the mountain bike race, and he ran a place, and so did Steve. I think Steve was about 6th in the mountain bike race.
Oh, okay.
But none of us did any good in the road race.
Oh, okay.
I think Stephen was about 8th in the crit. I was about 20th or something.
Oh,
okay.
So,
yeah. But that was an adventure I never expected to be in, was riding the Tour of Taipei. And it wasn't until after the event that it was ever revealed that I was 57 riding against 25-year-olds.
Okay. So it sounds like after about, is it fair to say after about 1980 that you it became more of a recreational thing rather than a...
Yeah. I'd still, Yeah, I still turn up most weeks and ride.
And you still how many now? I'm going to get to another thing, because this is another really eye-opening, interesting part of your story. So you're a recreational cyclist. You're still going out, if not every day, every second
every
day.
day.
Or
No,
whatever?
every day.
Yeah,
I do about 40 Ks, sometimes 50 or 60.
Yeah.
Still
And
do.
I know when I started going on the track a few years ago, you were still up chasing the motorbike, doing your 100 laps or whatever.
Yeah.
And one day, now how long ago is it? 18 months? 2 years?
About 2 years ago.
So 2 years, I rock up at the track, and the news goes around that you went out for a ride, and it didn't quite get back home the way you thought. Can you tell us about that?
Oh dear. Yeah. Yes. I'm trying to put it together now. Yeah. I'd go down the track every Tuesday night and chase the motorbike, as you pointed out. And the lads were always saying, look, we go out on Sunday morning. We meet at the hamburger place at Guildford. What is it called now? I can't remember. Alfred's. Alfred's. I meet Alfred's, 7 o'clock every Sunday morning. And I never went out. I never went out with them. I just ride on my own. And one Sunday morning I thought, I'll go meet them. And I rode out there. Don't remember another thing. Had a cardiac arrest and collapsed. And Stephen Gray performed CPR on me for 10 minutes or more until an ambulance arrived. And anyhow, the ambulance carried on with the CPR with the refibrillator. And next thing I knew, I woke up in hospital. It was Tuesday morning. And I thought, what am I doing here?
And you had no inkling of this whatsoever?
No, nothing. Never been crook in my life. And there was apparently it happens frequently to sportsmen. I mean, that Danish footballer only the other week, same thing happened there, cardiac arrest. Fit as a fiddle, playing international football. The soccer team in England, Leyton Orient, their manager, Justin Edinburgh, fit as a fiddle, just got the team promoted back into the league, had a cardiac arrest on a training thing, and he was only in his late 40s. So it can happen to anyone. But as ever, they fitted a pacemaker, so now I've got a pacemaker fitted. I don't notice it.
They discovered something else about your heart, I believe.
Did they?
Did they?
I can't remember.
Oh, okay. This I may need to correct the record here. Now, I heard something that when they actually looked at your heart, that some of your main arteries had...
The aorta is clogged. The main blood supply is clogged. And they couldn't unclog it at the hospital. And the surgeon said, that's not what caused the cardiac arrest. He said, because you're so fit, what's happened, you've developed veins that have bypassed it. Your body has bypassed it. So you're getting the same amount of blood you would have got through the aorta. And he said, it's unusual, but it's happened. The blood's getting through okay. I said, so you don't need to unblock. He said, we can't unblock the aorta. We cannot. That's it. It's knackered.
That's incredible. I'm staggered. Did they give you any indication as to how long that you'd been?
It had been a build-up for a long while. But
did they say like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years?
He didn't. He didn't know. But my cholesterol was low, so it wasn't a build-up of cholesterol that caused it. It's probably a hereditary thing, because my father passed away unexpectedly with what I would suspect a cardiac arrest. And in those days, nobody knew CPR. My mother thought he was asleep. But as ever, something here, thanks to Stephen Gray. But he was out for a bike ride the other week, and I berated him something shocking. I said, you bastard, you broke 3 ribs.
No.
He said, yeah, I heard them crack.
Dear. Oh. So was he, he's obviously trained to do CPR or whatever, or is
I imagine he did a course similar to what I did at St John's. I imagine he did a similar course.
note to listeners, it's such a simple, easy course, and
Yeah.
it can change a lot of people's
Yeah,
lives
yeah.
by performing it correctly on one person. Sort of
A
thing.
day's course, and they send you out a CD and a booklet, and you read it all up, and then go there for practical.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so there you go. So
Okay.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, although I was dead, for 10 minutes or more than that, which they find surprising because they thought my memory would be shot because I've gone for so long.
Yeah.
There was no angels.
Mm.
There was no light at the end of a tunnel. I was dead. There's nothing. There is nothing. You're dead.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's
You know nothing about
staggering,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think there'd be angels sitting on the end of the hospital bed or something? No, nothing.
Yeah.
No flutter of wings.
No life passing before you. Or
No,
anything.
nothing. No, they just turn the lights out.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Usually at this part of the interview, I'm going to start moving towards winding it up. So if there's any other stories or any other people or personalities or events that you remember that come to mind, here's an opportunity before I kind of like get into a couple of questions that kind of follow on from what we were just talking about.
About the heart thing.
Well, usually at this point, I might like say, well, let's just go through a few little facts here. So, what's your greatest achievement in cycling?
Being alive, I guess.
We'll get to that. What are you in your career? What are you most proud of? Do you think one single event or period?
Look, I suppose it has to be runner-up in the Australian road title. It's got to be. But in the years that I was racing seriously, I finished second in the West Australian professional road title, fifth in a professional road title, third in the West Australian amateur title. Where else did I finish? Fourth in the West Australian road title. I've always been there, but probably the crowning glory is to finish second and see the finish that I could have won it had I been more strategic in the Australian road title. But that would be the highlight. The Trans-Australia isn't a highlight. That was just something, just to piss off the Eastern Staters for not letting me ride the Sun Tour when they didn't think I was capable. And I did ride the following year, and unfortunately I had 4 punctures on the first day. But I put that down to buying tyres off of a certain professional rider who'd retired here, and he'd had the tyres under his bed for a few years, and they were perished.
Oh, okay.
But I got them cheap. And so that put me way down. Anyhow, but as I say, the Trans-Australia was a significant achievement, I suppose, but it wasn't the highlight. Not at all. It was something just to prove myself, I guess. When they said that, they didn't think I was capable of the distance, I thought, and the following year, of course, they had to put me in.
Good comeuppance.
Yeah.
What's the most amazing thing that you saw in a race?
The most amazing
The
thing.
most amazing thing. There's something that, like, whoa, something that just really surprised you. Is like
in cycling. By way of cycling. Crikey, that's put me on a spot. The most amazing.
Or there might be a funniest moment. Was there anyone, a competitor that just,
Well, apart from a policeman in Kendall telling me the bike race had been for a week before. It's quite astounding.
Yeah, that is actually quite funny.
But other than that, I think probably one, as I pointed out to you earlier, in that Collie Donnybrook, when Graham McVilly got fastest time riding on his own for practically the whole race, when we're all smashing it, doing bomb turns at the front, he still got it. That kind of astounded me. That was kind of a highlight to how good that rider was.
It's like Pogačar at the moment in the Tour de France. He just seems to be so much stronger than other people sort of thing.
McVilly went downhill after that. That was the last of his achievement, because he won the Sun Tour a couple of times, hadn't he? And he was Australian champion a couple of times. And I think after Kevin Spencer beat him in the West Australian title, he kind of lost interest a bit. And of course he's dead now, isn't he, Graham McVilly? He fell off a horse.
Did he?
He turned to equestrian and the horse fell on him.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So he's no longer with us. But,
This may be a difficult question or not, sort of thing. What wisdom have you learnt through your time in cycling, or how would you sum up your time in cycling?
It's probably as good as I could have achieved with what training I did. I realise now that had I been wealthy enough, or I had the means, if I'd have trained in England without a soccer injury, I could have probably done okay. Because I had, at that time, gone to the Lilleshall Training Centre, which is a major training centre in Britain, and rode with the top riders at the time in training there. Doug Daly, Derek Woodings, Peter Hill, and myself. They were all champion riders, and I was placed in their group under Brian Robinson. You heard of Brian Robinson? He won a couple of stages of Tour de France, but he was there training with Tommy Godwin, and he selected me to ride with these riders in the training group. So he obviously thought enough of me to put me with that group. But I was still doing a 9 to 5 job and the training, and I couldn't afford not to do it. And I think in hindsight, had I been able to afford to train, I could have done far better. From what I realised I achieved when I was working for a cottage soft drink company on a dodgy driver's licence. Because the fitness I gained from all that lifting and humping, and then riding, going out for a 40-mile ride after finish work, and then doing my 160, sometimes 200-mile training rides, on top of that. I think that gave me a fair idea of what I could have achieved had I, been able to allocate the time. So, but no, I'm happy enough with what I did.
And you obviously still love cycling, to still get on a bike
Well, I still get down the track, but I haven't been down the track recently because my left knee is starting to go funny. I've got a click in the left knee, and I thought the last thing I wanted to do is lock up on a fixed wheel. The left knee to lock up on a fixed wheel. On a free wheel, if it goes funny, I can just stop pedaling. You don't want to be doing close to 50 kilometres an hour, revving like mad.
No, you have to show some responsibility to the other riders on the track as well.
So if it clears up, which I hope it does, I'll come back down the track, because I quite like it. It's a bit of a buzz, isn't it? But I was never a track rider. Even though I won the club track title back in 1965.
65?
I won the club track title on Herne Hill.
Yeah, right.
Mind you, there's only 6 of us, isn't
it? 6 left.
I've got to be honest. But back in those days, like in the early 60s, in 1962, I was running places in long distance races, like in the 100-mile time trials and the 12-hour time trials. I was runner-up in the Eastern Counties time trial, which is the whole of Eastern England. I was second in that. I did 247 miles in the time trial, in the 12-hour time trial. And my left crank come off part of the way, and it was a strong light. And it's a special tool to put a strong light crank back on. So I lost a lot of time. So had I not lost that time, I could have probably won that. But fate haunts me. Fate haunts me. But so even at 18 years old, I was at a reasonable level.
I mean, it begs the question: do you think it was all to do with training, or do you know that you had like a little bit of
I had
the right genes? Were any other sportsmen in the family?
Not at all. No, I really hadn't got a lot of natural ability. I just did the miles, because right from when we go back to the beginning, you said I started riding a bike at 5 years old. When I was 12, on a upright bike, on an ordinary roadster bike, I was during the summer school holidays. I was riding to Brighton and back from London, which is 50 miles each way, to I'd ride to Clacton and back, which 60 miles each way, on an upright roadster bike at 12 years of age. So I just did it fairly naturally, Nobody ever believed me I did it. I rode to Hastings, I rode all over the place during the summer holidays. And that was at the 12-year-old.
And too young to even stop in the pubs for a meal and a beer.
Oh, I had nothing. I had no money. All I had was all I used to have was sandwiches my mum made and a bottle of water.
Yeah,
And that was it, you know.
Yeah. And she knew that you were like heading off to Brighton or whatever?
No, I never told her. I never told her until I got back. My dad never believed me. He never believed. I used to buy the little flags, little plastic flags of the towns I went to. It cost me sixpence. That was practically just to prove I'd been there. And my father said to me, you can buy those anywhere. You know?
If only you had the mobile phones, you could take a picture of yourself.
Yeah, I know.
Here I am,
I know.
selfie in Brighton.
I know. No, he was a great put down, was my father. Yeah. But,
that's the generation.
you know, getting a bit off the subject, but my father was a bit jealous of me in some respects. And there was one time when he got, I don't know what caused it, but he had this meltdown and he threw my bike down the stairs, just threw my best racing bike down the stairs for no reason that I can understand. And he never spoke about why he did it or anything. But about 2 weeks later, he gave me some money in lieu of my birthday as some sort of appeasement. But it was quite strange.
Yeah.
And then my mother said that later on, he passed away by this time. My mother said, yeah, he was quite proud of you in some respects because he used to tell all his friends, you know, about what you'd done. And yeah, to me, face to face, it was quite odd.
It's a real generational sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just that.
But I don't think we want to add that. It's not necessary to add that, but it's just a
yeah. Did you have brothers and sisters?
I've got a sister. Yeah, she's not athletic at all. No, but yeah, she still lives in England. But she came out on a few club runs when we had club runs and bike club runs coming out on that. I wouldn't. Anyhow, that's about done, I think.
Okay, so we'll again, just for listeners' benefits, Bruce has kindly brought over some photo albums, and at some stage in the club we will endeavour to select some photos and some articles and upload them to the website. So that's it. Thank you very much, Bruce. Very much appreciated.